share with you about chapter 30 in St. Teresa of Avila's Way of Perfection. And we were just, in our last video, we looked at chapter 29 in the Way of Perfection. And in that chapter, she had started to address the Our Father, the Pater Noster, which it is in Latin. And she continues that in chapter 30. She begins with the lines in the subtitle, Sanctificetur nomen tu, adveniat regnum tuum, which means, that is the Latin, and it means, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come in us. And she's using this prayer, the Our Father, which is not unusual because this is the time of Trent. And at the Council of Trent, they began to look at the Our Father in the catechisms that they developed after Trent. And the church fathers had looked at the Our Father. So here she is looking at the Our Father as well. And she says to her sisters in the Way of Perfection, how do we address someone so important? We should know how to address him, how to approach him. We should not let God be put off by our prayer. And she gives the example of Jesus in the garden and how he expressed his fear to God, but he put his life in God's hand. He expressed his fear and he wasn't ready to embrace his will, but he put his life in God's hand. And would that we could do that as well. She says you can't be praying the Our Father and be on automatic pilot and just spout it off and not think about the words and not mean them when you say them. So she's saying, consider what you are asking. And what will you do if you receive the gift you are asking? Are you going to throw it back in God's face because it's not what you want? So she says, if you say thy will be done, mean it and accept what he gives and pray for his light that you can accept it. So let's go back to that line, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come in us. She said these two petitions were put together for a reason. And she said when we say thy kingdom come in us, the kingdom is this prayer of the heart that we experience on earth and we will continue to experience in heaven in a much deeper way of totally loving and knowing God and giving ourselves totally to him as we begin to do now. So this kingdom here on earth that we're praying for is our being immersed totally in God. And she encourages us. And she encourages us to pray and her sisters to pray without ceasing. And she talks about the many joys to be found in this kingdom of heaven. That if we do this prayer of the heart and we go within, we will find this kingdom where there is peace and tranquility and God's glory and this interior satisfaction that will come, that will lend itself to praising the Lord and hallowing or praising his name. And she said, for all love him there, and the soul's one concern is loving him. Nor can it cease from loving him because it knows him. So she wants this for her sisters and she wants this for us. So as we move on in this prayer of the quiet, she uses this Our Father. It's important to know, and she gives us this warning that vocal prayer is not something separate from prayer of the heart, as we are seeing in this Our Father, that it's incorporated within. And how does that happen? When we bring ourselves to pray with prayer of the heart, when we lift our hearts to God, when we give of ourselves, when we give him ourselves and we offer him ourselves, and with that repetition of offering ourselves, when we put ourselves into his hands, then when we pray, we are in his hands and we are experiencing this kingdom within. That is how we should pray our vocal prayer. That's how we should pray the Psalms in the Liturgy of the Hours. That's how we should pray the Our Father. And she said that vocal prayer is not like, okay, it's something lowly. Okay, now I'm doing vocal prayer. Now I'm saying an Our Father. Now I'm saying the Rosary. No, this is not lowly prayer, but it's the way we pray. It's where our heart is when we're praying this prayer. Is our heart in God's hands? Is it in this prayer of the heart? Are we offering ourselves to Him? That's the important thing. And so she ends this section in chapter 30. She ends this chapter talking about a sister who had a very high level of contemplation. She was really in union with God. And all she did was repeat the Our Father again and again. But she was in union with God. So we can't judge our prayer by what we're doing or how we're doing it, but it's more about where our heart